An earthquake literally halts your flagship Australian mine, your overall volume slumps, and yet you still print a record Q2 for free cash flow. Welcome to the magic of 33% higher gold prices. It's July 23rd, 2026. You're listening to Earnings Unscripted. Today we're looking at the second quarter for Newmont, ticker NEM. And Miro, it's honestly a pretty fascinating disconnect.
It really is. You look at the production side, and they definitely took a hit from divestitures and that Australian suspension. But the realized pricing just papers over all of it. Revenue came in around $6.1 billion, which is actually up 15% compared to last year.
Right, because when the commodity is sitting up at those levels, you just don't need to dig out as much material. But the Cadia mine situation, that caught my eye. The April earthquake obviously shut the whole underground operation down, but they're still facing regulatory walls on new development.
Yeah, and the reason why is actually wild. So they got the established caves back online in June safely. But to open up new ones, they essentially have to trigger artificial seismic activity.
Wait, so to build the next part of the mine, they actively trigger earthquakes? Like right after a real earthquake?
Basically, the process intentionally shifts underground rock pressure. So you can imagine the local regulators just put a hard stop on that pending safety audits. It pushes their longer-term growth timeline for Australia into this murky, unknown territory.
Yeah, I guess you don't want to accidentally bring the roof down. And honestly, it seems like the market totally shrugged at the financial wins today because of those exact operational headaches. They posted about $2.2 billion in cash from operations, but the stock gapped down early and kind of flatlined near its quarterly lows all day.
Yeah, the tape action was pretty lifeless, just chopped around in the steady channel and barely moved after hours. Though, just to be super clear here, our read on the market's mood is strictly a personal opinion, definitely not official financial advice. But I think investors are looking at the volume constraints, the rising unit costs, and saying the gold rally is doing all the heavy lifting right now.
That's exactly it. So management is aggressively manufacturing per share value to compensate. They've bought back almost a tenth of their total share count since they started this current authorization program.
Right. Another huge burst of repurchases this quarter. If you can't force the market to love the operational story, you shrink the denominator so every remaining share gets a bigger cut of the windfall.
Okay, so they're engineering the cap table, which makes sense. But they're also escalating a massive fight on the ground. You have to explain to me what's happening with this open notice of default they just slapped on Barrick over the Nevada operations.
So Nevada Gold Mines, or NGM, is this massive joint venture. Newmont holds a proportionate stake, roughly 38%, but Barrick actually operates the sites. And basically, Newmont just slapped Barrick with a formal notice of default.
Whoa, default? That's incredibly hostile for a partnership. What are they actually fighting about?
They're alleging Barrick's diverting shared NGM resources over to a project called 4 Mile. The catch is 4 Mile's wholly owned by Barrick.
Wait, let me make sure I've got this right. You're saying Barrick's taking staff or heavy equipment from the joint mine that Newmont pays for, and they're using it to develop a private asset next door?
Exactly. So you can see why that triggered a legal tripwire, and it's escalating fast. On the call, their CEO, Natasha Viljoen, straight up said, quote, "While I remain hopeful of reaching a successful near-term resolution, we find ourselves nearing the end of this extensive direct engagement period with several key issues still unresolved."
Nearing the end of this extensive direct engagement period? That's honestly the most polite way I've ever heard someone threaten a boardroom war.
Oh, absolutely. It's a shot across the bow. But it tells you how fiercely they're defending every last ounce of efficiency right now. Because if you peek under the hood of their own operations, unit costs are getting incredibly squeezed.
Squeezed how, though? We just talked about that massive margin expansion from the pricing rally.
The top line's great, sure, but down in the dirt, the cost to operate is spiking hard. Specifically, their byproduct cost applicable to sales, which they track as CAS. That metric just jumped 93% quarter over quarter to hit roughly $1,040 an ounce.
Wait, almost double? How does a miner's cost per ounce double in 3 months without the entire company catching fire?
Well, this is where the accounting gets tricky. They report on a byproduct basis. So they take the revenue they earn from secondary metals like copper or silver, and they subtract it from the cost of producing their primary metal, gold.
Ah, okay. So because the earthquake knocked out all the copper output at Cadia, they lost that offset credit, making the gold look suddenly way more expensive to pull out.
You nailed it. Plus, you layer in higher diesel prices and the fact that Ghana just hiked their corporate tax rate earlier this year. The floor for their baseline costs is structurally shifting up.
So how do you even fight that if you're management? You can't exactly hedge against a foreign government's tax policy.
You micromanage the things you can. My favorite anecdote from the call was about their heavy machinery. Viljoen literally said, "We have parked nearly 50 mining production units across the portfolio without affecting production. These are practical, site-led actions that collectively improve productivity."
Jeez, they just turned the keys off on dozens of massive haulers and parked them?
Yep, they analyzed fleet idle times and realized they were burning fuel and paying contractor hours for zero extra rock. So they literally benched the equipment.
Which is honestly a brilliantly simple fix, but it highlights how much fat gets ignored when pricing's sky high. Like, nobody cares about idling dump trucks until you're trying to defend your margins against brutal inflation.
And that capital discipline's critical because project costs are blowing out elsewhere too. Take their Red Chris development. The original estimates were done before they bought out Newcrest, but now Newmont is seeing major sectoral inflation pushing those capital requirements way up.
Right. And the board still has to vote on a final investment decision for that late next year, right?
Exactly. So they're facing a really delicate timeline, and they're heavily weighting their remaining capital expenditures to the back half of this year. We're talking almost 60% of their sustaining capital still waiting to hit the balance sheet.
Which means we're staring down a huge wave of near-term cash flow compression right as these macro costs harden into place.
Exactly. The spending really accelerates from here. You've got these elevated baseline costs slamming into a much heavier development schedule, which naturally pinches the free cash we were praising earlier.
Right, because they held off on CapEx in the front half of the year, so now the bill comes due. Did they actually give any hope for volume bouncing back to offset that?
Not immediately. They reaffirmed their full-year guidance, which actually, that's a positive signal. But CEO Natashel Viljoen said on the call, quote, "We expect third quarter production for the total portfolio to be broadly in line with the second quarter before picking up again in the fourth quarter."
So essentially treading water through the fall, and then I guess they wait for, Lihir to finish maintenance and that new Ahafo North mine to hit full speed at year end?
Yeah, pretty much. And they've got to fund it all right now. The CFO noted they're perfectly on track for roughly $1.95 billion in sustaining capital this year, but a huge chunk of that flows out over the next 6 months.
It just ruins the gold bug fantasy a little bit, doesn't it? The market hands you this generational commodity rally, and you still have to spend half your time parking trucks and bracing for an expensive winter.
It's chuckling. Well, the fantasy always ignores the diesel bill. Look, they're managing it well, and that massive buyback provides a really nice floor for the stock. But it definitely highlights how tough running a mine actually is, even when the macro setup looks perfect.
Yeah, exactly. If nothing else, they're proving that high gold prices don't automatically make mining easy. I think that covers it perfectly. Thanks for breaking all this down, Miro.
Catch you later.
If you had fun untangling this one with us, maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss the next report. Just a quick reminder that this whole show, including both of our voices, is fully synthetic, letting us go from Newmont's massive earnings drop to your feed the exact same day. We'd really love to hear your ticker requests or thoughts, so drop us a line at earningsunscripted@datamadness.ca or catch the X link in the show notes.
See you on the next one.